Right. Let me know when everybody's up and going. I'll get started. First, for the network security incident, obviously some great news. I know we sent it out to you guys yesterday afternoon that bill pay is back up and running. And a couple clarification things. If you were already getting automatic draft or ACH, if you already had that established even previous to yesterday, that was still continuing if it was coming from your bank. So there should be no lapse there even previously. But regardless, if you're logging on, paying month by month without a bank draft, that you should be fully good to go, fully operational on the sanitation and Pensacola Energy side. So very excited to get that back up and running. Thank you to everyone involved, lots of departments involved in making sure that that's back. I also made the decision yesterday to extend until May 1st. There would be no late fees, there will be no negative repercussions in any way to your bill for the next 3 weeks. And it extended that in a standard proceeding. It might only just be a few days. We've been down a few weeks. Certainly, the citizen and the customer deserve to have a few weeks to get back and acclimated. So we've extended that to May 1st. So everything happening after May 1st will be business as usual in terms of billing, late fees, payments, all those types of things. But we're giving those 3 weeks to everybody to get back squared away. So we appreciate your patience on that. So on the investigative side, again, not much to give you at this point, and I would certainly defer to FDLE, FBI on those things. We did mention, I know we sent out last week that we were going to go ahead and take the steps as we did in 2019 to notify and to provide some credit monitoring services to citizens and customers. So we're in the process of that now. More to come there. There was enough there for us to say that it was possible, but still to this moment, we're not aware of that something has been leaked or something specifically is out there. But out of abundance of caution, we're going to go ahead and take that same process that we did in 2019. And so that means you'll see some letters coming from USPS to everyone affected. There'll be information. There'll be a 1-800 number. We're bolstering up services at 311 and all of those to be able to take those phone calls. So there's a lot that goes into that, and again, something that we're preparing for, and we've learned from since 2019 that in 2024 hopefully will be an even more seamless approach. So when you for the folks out there, when they see those letters, that is where we're at, and more to come in the next few days on all of that information. And getting everything out to you. So we're working through that. Recycling, we have 2 bids that came in for the curbside recycling RFP that closed at 2:30 yesterday. I have not seen those. I'm sure our team has not vetted anything that recent yet, but we're going to take a look at that and certainly what is in there and what's available to us. I know there'll be questions in the selection and all of that. We'll vet all of that out, and we'll see what that looks like. And if that is financially viable, logistically viable for our citizens, something we can pursue, and we'll see what our options are from there. The weather, I know you guys have been, I'm sure, reporting on it. We are cognizant and we are aware of the weather coming in. We've notified our teams that are going to be out there in the field, our public works, sanitation. Everyone's aware of that and making the proper preparations for that. And I just want to make sure that our citizens are doing the same. So that severe weather coming in tomorrow. I think I'd seen an estimate of something close to 4 inches of rain possible, as well as possible tornadoes, thunderstorms, all of that. So just be on the lookout for that and make sure you're making your proper preparations out there. We are going to go ahead and finalize. We are going to do April 27th as the playground and Phase 1 Bruce Beach opening. We talked about the 20th or 27th. We have the Portland Loo getting installed on the 19th. So just for the sake of comfort, we wanted to open it on a Saturday and make sure that all the kids of our community are be able to get out there and play. So So we're going to do that on the 27th. I believe it'll be 9 or 9:30 a.m. We'll have more to come, but it'll be Saturday morning, April 27th. And then on the topic of Port and Loos, barring weather delays, the schedule for the 3 that we've talked about getting installed: Bruce Beach, April 19th, just mentioned. The one at MLK Plaza is scheduled to be in by June 7th, and the one at the skate park will be in on June 14th. So we will have all of those in about 60 days or so, those first 3. And progress continues with the UWF Museum Plaza partnership with the Historic Trust that we would put a 4th in right there behind the State Museum. So no date on that yet, but those conversations continue and are positive. If you've driven down Bayfront Parkway in the last few days, you've seen the southbound lane closed. You may recall that we had that happen several months ago. We were removing the invasive species down there, the Phragmites, the tall reeds down there. You noticed right around the Missing Children's Museum in VMP, we had cleaned that up, and that was long overdue. That was many months and years of growth that I know we have a plan in place moving forward about making sure we manage that a little better. But we're actually going now a little further east, so right to the Chase Street Bayfront Parkway area, around past on both sides of the Muskogee Wharf, that subdivision entrance. So we just basically are moving further east and getting those Phragmites removed. And we're working alongside FDOT with that. Some of that is their responsibility, but it's something that we didn't want to wait on. We want to just go ahead and get done. So same thing. We're going to really enhance our protocols of just making sure that all that is cut back and down. So it is a big undertaking. There's a lot of it down there, and so that's why we've got that southbound lane closed here in the next few days. So just be careful around that, and you'll see some of our vendors and some of our staff out there. A couple good updates from Parks and Rec that we want to give. The kitchen at Woodlands Heights, is going in. It's about a $60,000 investment that we're putting in to get that kitchen available, where there'd be able to be catering and events and things like that. That's something that I know has been very important to Councilwoman Broughton and to the Woodland Heights Neighborhood Association. So that's been priced, and we are moving ahead, and construction has begun. So excited to get that amenity up and going at Woodland Heights. And then also, you remember, because of the cybersecurity incident, we have the very popular Outdoor Pursuits Summer Camp, where we are working on a workaround. We had delayed the registration to April 15th. So we will get some information out as soon as we can on how we're going to handle that. We're afraid the Rec Track software may not be fully up for April 15th. So those will still take place. We just might have a different process. So we'll be sharing that through our channels and the Parks and Rec channels of how we will actually manage that. But as of this point, the registration will be on April 15th. So I mentioned that just because it is something that sells out pretty quickly, and I know there'll be a lot of people paying attention to that. I've had some concerns personally. I know it's been talked about over the years. The intersection, you guys recall, since I've been in, I know Mayor Robinson added a couple stop signs to the north behind us. Since I've been in, we added the one at Reeves and Government, as well as the one at Jefferson and Government. Another one that I've had a concern with for a while is the Tarragona and Romana stop. So that's 1 block south of Garden Street. It's a little confusing, I believe, to drivers, in the sense that there's stops at Intendencia, there's stops at Government, there's stops at Zaragoza, there's just the one that doesn't. And what we saw right there at Seville Quarter, at Government and Jefferson, is the unintended consequences. People stop anyway, even though it's two-way. So with that, we've talked about this a lot. I talk about it at town halls a lot, that someone may ask, why don't you put a stop sign here or put a stop sign there? There's a lot that goes into that. There's a study that has to take place. It's got to be a place that merits it. And so we have looked into that, and we feel pretty comfortable about it. But we've reached out to FDOT. They're going to do a traffic study there as well. And the reason for that is you've got a lot of FDOT managed roads just to the north. And one of the concerns, potentially, is the proximity of being just 1 block south of that traffic light at Garden and Tarragona. and what that could do for traffic and traffic flow. So we do get a lot of inquiries about this one outside, but the point is here, we're looking into it, and FDOT is looking into it to potentially make that Tarragona, Romana a four-way stop. I'm glad to hear that, and we'll see what those results are. So that'll take a few months. I think 3 months is what FDOT told us to conduct the study, and then they'll finalize that report. If it merits it, we'll go ahead and move forward with it. And last thing, it wasn't we were going to have a port event out at tomorrow. Probably not a great weather day to show off our port. So we have canceled that. That wasn't a public event. It was a media kind of community vendor event that I know you guys may be aware of, but because due to the weather, we're going to postpone that, and we will look at future dates and get those to you. So that is all the updates I have, and happy to take your questions.
Mayor, how's the new parking app doing? And what are your views on rate structures on that going forward? It's still a bargain, yeah, by all means.
So I'm extremely pleased with the results so far, and you've heard me say my focus has always been on let's make the customer interaction the best it can be, because it's hard to raise price, it's hard to change any other policy when the infrastructure itself isn't working well. So we wanted to make sure that happened. I don't have the exact numbers, but I know the ratio at one point was about 14 or 15,000 transactions to 2 complaints, and that's my kind of ratio in terms of it was what we hoped. We were going to go to the largest app in the country because it's got a lot of experience, cutting-edge technology that it's able to be a little more user-friendly than the Park Pensacola app that we've had before. I know when we switched on April 1st, we got a handful of phone calls that first day, from people saying the app isn't working. But we did. That's why we gave that 3-month period, and we continue to be proactive. We're running commercials on TV, billboards. We took a very proactive approach in making sure that our citizens and our visitors saw that change. We didn't just hope that they, read one of our press releases or something like that. We try to get out there. So I feel really good about that. In terms of the rate increase, that's to solve a problem of inventory. And the number one complaint in the UWF study was we can't find spaces. And we asked when you can't find spaces, and they say at nights and on weekends. Well, at night during the weekend, which we charge nothing during. So the time that it's hardest to find a space is the time we charge $0. And so that's not the sole reason we're doing it. It's because the price hasn't been raised in years, since we've had a baseball stadium, since we've had vibrancy downtown, and that is what comes with it. And so I know there's a lot of traditionalists out there that say, well, why don't you make parking free? Well, that would be the opposite impact. If we make parking free everywhere, all we would have is people staying in parking spaces, employees, people leaving cars overnight. We would be losing such inventory, which would really be the choke point for vibrancy and for small businesses and all of that downtown. So it's a case of supply and demand, and we've got to do a better job of balancing supply and demand. And we got a great problem to have. We've got significant 30% cell phone transaction growth over a 2-year period in our downtown. So people are coming downtown, and we've got to do a better job of balancing those things. So as you said, still a bargain, I believe, at $1 an hour. Our study suggested that given all the economics, given our household income economics, everything included in that, we should probably be at about $1.80 an hour right now compared to other cities. And we did those comparisons, but we're going to $1 an hour. We understand that this could be a long process in that respect. But we've got a process in place for starting to implement some of those policy changes that we've talked about, whether that's added geography, a little bit later hours, and cost. Those were really the 3 policy changes we're looking at. And so what you see and what they're going to vote on Thursday is because instead of waiting till October 1st, from this point forward, this coming budget, we believe that the parking fees, like most cities, the parking fees should be handled in the annual budget approval. For whatever reason, our parking fees have been in the ordinance. And so that means if you want to raise it by 1 cent, you would have to go back and have 2 votes at council to raise it by 1 cent. We want the flexibility to be able to say, well, there might be areas in town where it's $1 and some that are 25 cents or some that's 75 cents. If technology allows us to do that, that might be something we consider down the road. That's going to be pretty hard to do if it's sitting in an ordinance. So why it's coming now is that we want to go ahead and make that change from today until October when the budget is approved. But this will be the last time we will be proposing a change in our parking structure outside of the annual budget. We'll just start doing it in a more traditional sense. The same way we do Roger Scott tennis, the same way we do Osceola golf, those are all in the budget every year, and then we approve them as needed. So, but we didn't want to wait 6-7 months to make that change. That's why you see that at council today, or excuse me, on Thursday.
Is that app being used on some of the private lots now?
It is, and so what's important to understand, and I totally understand the confusion. I've learned a lot through this process too. Park Mobile, when we brought them on, they are simply the technology aspect. They're not enforcement. They're a technology that is afforded to anyone. Anybody on any lot can call Park Mobile and say, we want you to use our app for these spaces, right? Now, if you're going to write tickets, that's going to have to be someone else. If you're going to want to put a boot on someone, that's going to be someone. That all they do is the front-facing technology. So Park Mobile can be used anywhere. That is not exclusive to us, nor is it associated with us. Yeah, so if you have
their own rates, is it too?
Yes, but well, when I say those private lots could set their own rates, yeah, not Park Mobile. Park Mobile is simply there to say, hey, we'll help take payment. We will. And we will be the technology solution for you, so you don't have to have an attendant standing there, at the front of your parking lot. So anyone can have Park Mobile, and anyone who does have Park Mobile doesn't have to be approved by us. We are just another customer of Park Mobile, the same way that any private lot could be a customer of Park Mobile. So yeah, those are popping up now. I'll say, I think the synergy of that is, I'm just talking as a community member. The more people that are on the same app, I think, is a good thing. I think that's what causes so much confusion for us right now. There's I believe 3 companies out there, 3 or 4 out there now, some bigger than others that are technology solutions, and that's everyone's right to do. It's totally up to them. But I think in a perfect world, the easier it is to explain how to sign on and how to pay for parking is a good thing for the community. So I encourage anyone that thinks that that's a good solution for them to take a look at it, or take a look at whatever option they want. But private lots have their purview to select anybody that they want to use. But what I can say as one of Park Mobile's customers with their technology, they're doing a great job for us, and it's a significant improvement from, I believe, where we were before they've started. So as I said, we get very, very few complaints. If we have more than 10 complaints, and we've got to be well over 20,000 transactions, 25,000 transactions probably now, if we've gotten more than 10 complaints, and every one of those early on had been solved pretty quickly, I'd be surprised. So I'm very, very pleased with the performance of that app so far. Yeah.
Yeah. So back to the ransom or security issue.
Yeah.
The online pay bills back online. Are there any other services that are still offline that we're looking to get back?
We do have we have a few things. Again, I think I mentioned to you guys before. We have, based off of 2019 learning a lot, we set a protocol of what we would, if we had to shut everything down, what would we bring back first. So we're working through that. Chief Craner has been leading that team and doing an amazing job. Our IT team's been diligent about getting everything up. So I mentioned before, a good example, because it came up with Outdoor Pursuits, is Rec Track. That's what we use at the golf course. What we use, it's a Parks and Rec software. Well, as you can imagine, as important as that is for those operations, that's probably not as important as email and internet and things like that. So we have a standard protocol in place. So we continue to work down that list as our emergency coup plan requires. So we do have a few things, but I would say I know we're well over the majority of things are fully operational. We have a few more that are in that maybe they're working, but we're not ready to say they're working yet, just because we want to test them. And as you can imagine, with bill pay, that was one that we wanted to make really, really sure we felt good about. And so we knew that we had people being able to take payments and go through. We saw those. We felt really good. Anything could happen, but we felt really good about how that process was working for us on Monday and Monday morning. So that should be up. But I would say, from a customer facing, what do our citizens use the most? that was a big hurdle for us to make sure that we got that bill pay back up and going.
This has also been called a ransomware incident every now and then. So was there a ransom paid?
That'll be something. I don't want to get into that investigation side of things. We acknowledge that it was a ransomware incident, but all of those things, there are rules in place and protocols in place of what we can and can't do in that respect. So I think that's a big reason why these things get handed off by protocol, by state regulation to FDLE and others. So again, not trying to not answer your question, but I don't have the answer to it. So that would be an FDLE, FBI question.
Can you give like a percentage or rough ballpark estimate of like how restored the city's infrastructure is?
Well, what I could tell you from an isolation standpoint and a restoring basic function in the city standpoint, from an isolation standpoint of those issues, we're 100%. I feel like we have a couple small things, and I can get some more specific numbers of the 14, 15, 16 different protocols in order where we are. But as I said, I know into last week we were over the majority of those fully operational. So I'd hate to put an inaccurate percentage on it, but I'm comfortable enough saying the vast majority of internal systems are up and operational at this point, and a couple of those things, the rec tracks, the things like that we're still testing and working through. But it could be. I mean, there's also some other things some improvements that we were already in the process of making before this, and so there'll be some hardware improvements and things like that. And as our protocol always is with any emergency situation where the plan is engaged, we'll also, once we get everything up and complete, we're going to have kind of an after. What went well, what are some other opportunities for improvement? That's what we should always do. Whether it's a hurricane or a cybersecurity incident or anything else, we'll take some of those things and say, do we add this note? Do we take that out? Did that make sense? So we continue to monitor kind of those things as well, as to say, if there's some way to improve as a city, we'll always do it. And I think our process so far in 2024 is a testament to that, because we certainly are in a better place right now than we were in 2019, and I think a lot of it's because of what we learned in 2019. But I feel really good about the progress that we have, and for all intents and purposes, from a functioning standpoint, we're in a pretty strong place.
Mayor, do you track building permit trends within the city? And if so, could you share with us what the trends are year to date? It's just anecdotally, it seems there's a pretty good slowdown in some forms of building.
Yeah, to answer your first question, yes, we as a city track it for sure. It's something that David and I and Jonathan and I talk about. I'd hate to cite whatever the last number or percentage I heard, but I think it's safe to say there's been a plateau, and I think there's a lot of factors for that having nothing to do with the city of Pensacola. I think you've got 7+% interest rates. You got the cost of construction. Those are going to be factors no matter what year or what decade it is. If the price of money goes up and the price of wood and steel and shingles go up, it's going to have a slowing effect versus a 2.8% interest market and pre-COVID, where you started to see that. So I'd hate to. I wouldn't be comfortable saying that we've seen a significant decrease, but we can get those numbers. We absolutely track this. Yeah, sure.
Have Dominique or Jason.
Yeah.
I think the residential side across the state is different than the commercial side.
Yeah.
The numbers are different according to reporting in other counties.
Yeah. And they typically will be. And those, I would say, on the commercial side, that might be more uniquely market driven. Residential side is going to probably be kind of similar statewide because the interest rates are the same statewide. But commercial is going to be a lot of talent acquisition demand. You might be willing to pay 7% if you're bursting at the seams and you need another 200,000 square feet of warehouse. That may not stop you when you have the capital to outlay to be able to do that. But we do track those things and understand we do that from a budgeting perspective, right? I mean, how many permitting fees are coming in each year and staffing up or down or otherwise? Those are something that every year I know our permitting folks keep an eye on. But yeah, happy to get you whatever our latest numbers are.
In terms of recycling, I know there's been issues in the past. Do you think the city should consider having their own center or partnering with the county to create one?
I'm not interested in our own center. I did see over in Alabama that I think they're going to build a $25 million facility to help do some curbside over there. And I know there's some private folks getting in the market. I think Waste Management's building one in Fort Walton Beach that was supposed to be opening around now. I don't know. I haven't paid close enough attention. But, look, my focus is I really treat this as the reset button to get us to what recycling needs to be. And whether that's curbside, if that's feasible or not, is there a hybrid approach? I asked questions about recycling in the last resident satisfaction survey. There'll be ones in this one about you've had garbage for twice a week. Do you see that as valuable? Do you see that as either way, or do you see that it's not valuable? Some folks say, "Oh, I don't need that," and then I run into parents with 3 kids, and they're like, "Man, this is a lifesaver that we have trash coming twice a week." So there'll be a difference of opinion on that. We're willing to look at anything. Whether it's if we can reinstitute something on our side, if the vendor, if the third party thing is not feasible, then we'll take another fresh look when we really start to limit now, and hopefully we've changed that behavior of some by just our drop-off to really limit it to things that actually have a market. And that's, I would say, the biggest misnomer out there is you have to understand that there's no market for the vast majority of what we were putting in our can. It's not whether you did a good job or not, or we'll hear a lot of times people say, well, why don't we do more education? When you hand someone a free can and say put anything that meets the definition of recyclable in it, you can do as much education as you want. If it's a free can or nothing, it's going to be the second garbage can until we've got to come up with a better way. So we're open-minded about how we're going to do it. We'll come up with some solution, and we continue to move forward with the idea that we're going to look at curbside first and see how feasible that is. Then we will also, after we kind of come up with that solution, we'll look at assisted drop-off if that isn't feasible. But the assisted drop-off demand is going to be much lower if we go back to curbside. So we kind of want to figure out the curbside thing one way or the other, and then from there we'll decide if the best alternative, if that doesn't work, is to come up with some more assisted drop-offs that we could make it easier on our folks. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited to get into these and see what that looks like. Is it weekly? Is it twice a month? Is it? I mean, I imagine there's going to be lots of apples and oranges as it pertains to these RFPs in terms of how they, these outside parties would want to conduct it and what they would want to do. So I think it won't be just simply one has a price and another has a price. I think there's going to be a lot of nuance that's going to be in these to make it feasible for them and hopefully something that's feasible for us.
With the bids in on that, what's the timeline now of when you think?
Yeah, I'll have to get with since we just closed. But what I can tell you is I've got significant urgency to get something decided. That doesn't mean that we're going to start it in 30. We've got to, the same way we did with the parking app. Sometimes it's easy to rush right into something. So I'm not saying we must be at the curb in 30 days. What we're saying is we have urgency to find that solution. And then I think when we do, we will have a well spelled out timeline from, okay, well, once we've made that selection, we're going to take 60 days or 90 days, or we'll start October 1st or January 1st, depending on what it is. But I think a lot of what's going to be in there is going to help dictate that too. Is what's the stand-up time for one of these outside vendors if we pick them? That may not be quick. They may be getting off another contract that we're waiting on or something like that. So that's why I know it's not an exact date, but that's why I say I have significant urgency to find us a solution. But there are some circumstances outside that don't allow us to just pick up and start at the day that we want to. So, but we'll continue to push forward with it and get a solution as fast as we can.
Mayor, does the city provide cell phones for city employees? And if so, what is the policy on apps like TikTok and other things that are said to present security concerns?
Yes, we do provide cell phones. I would have to get with our IT team on. I just don't have a clear answer for you on what policies there are. I can assure you there are standards in place, just like with desktops and laptops of and what you sign off on when you have that city cell phone. But particular apps, what you can or can't do, I'd have to check with Stephen. Same thing. We're happy to get back with you on and get you what that protocol might be.
How does the city handle public records between personal and city-owned cell phones? Is there a policy on that? That's a news item here recently.
So it's handled the same way it has been for years. That just because you have a city cell phone doesn't mean there's public business can be discussed on a city cell phone or a personal cell phone. So just because you possess a city cell phone doesn't mean there may not be city business records on a personal phone. That conveys the same way. So we handle it the same way we always do. They go through the clerk's office and the request comes in and we fulfill that request through city email, through city phone, and say any city business discussed about X issue on any text messages are brought forward by that deadline.
Mayor, a couple of questions on the Motor Lodge and West Main Street. I guess first off, on the Motor Lodge, with the proposals y'all have in, is it pretty much certain now that the Motor Lodge is going to be demolished, or what's the status?
So I wouldn't say anything is certain because with the vote yesterday at CRA and then the council vote Thursday to start the regulated, the standard practice that we announced the disposition of property, right? So CRA voted unanimously for that yesterday. They'll galvanize that with the council vote on Thursday. What that means is that's the at least 30-day process that any city property that would be disposed for any reason that would be going to someone else, whether it be a land trust, whether it be affordable housing developer, whatever the case may be, that process starts. So it would be unfair at this point to say it definitely will be, because there's still a 30-day process, even though we had done letters of interest, and certainly we're going to respect that process, the people that gave us that information when we asked for it. Nonetheless, we would have to see how this 30-day process plays out before I would be able to say definitively. But I guess I can safely say it's starting to look like that, but that's why we did this letter of interest model, and this was new for the city, because I think what happened in years past, and I think this happens at all governments, is you get an idea in your head of, as the mayor, as the council, you get an idea in your head of exactly what you think should happen there. But I'm not a developer. The council isn't a developer. We don't build affordable housing for a living. So this letter of interest model doesn't limit us like an RFP would. If we put an RFP out for Motor Lodge that said you have to keep the buildings, that's it. Well, we could spend 3, 4, 5 months, get 0 bids because it doesn't pencil, and then we're 5 months later into a housing crisis that we haven't solved anything. This process allows us to kind of take the temperature of what the demand is out there for different pieces of property that we have that we want to see developed or redeveloped, and then that gives us a picture of the best next step. So we got 2 letters of interest at Motor Lodge. They both mentioned significant or full demo of the buildings. I think in a perfect world, sure. Hotels are repurposed all the time around the country for homeless transitional housing, for affordable housing. I will say a lot of those typically have more volume. The ones that you see, they may have 50, 60, 70 units, so this is only 28. So it's not a complete surprise in that sense. I think the only way you would have probably been able to do it would be there's a little bit of extra property on the south side there if they could have augmented somehow. But again, just goes to show you I'm not in the business. These are folks that do this for a living, and they stack capital for affordable projects for a living, and so I would say nothing's final on that yet, but but it looks like that's going to be the, we're going to go that direction just based on the feedback that we receive from people who can get these projects done. So, we'll continue to vet. It sounds like the direction of the CRA board is that we would vet that more. The letter of interest that had a little more information and a little more, there's clearly one seemed to be better than the other. And I think we'll start going down the road with them and have those conversations. So, and you never know what could change, there. So, if there's some part that we can save, if there's some, piece of it that we could save, certainly, that would make sense within the development, we want to do that. But our primary goal is to house people affordably. That's what our primary goal is. So, we'll do that the best way we can.
And just a question about the process of this, because you talked about 30 days, and I guess, could somebody else in these 30 days come along and bring still a letter of interest? Is that kind of how it works?
Sure. I mean, someone could call us right now and say, we'll write a check for the motor lodge for X dollars. Nothing limits, in the letter of interest, nothing limits us, like an RFP, that if someone came along. That being said, ethically speaking, if we had a open and closed period for letters of interest, certainly we're going to be giving significant credence to the folks that have followed that process the right way. That being, again, but nothing stops anyone from, if they said, oh, I missed it, they could put in for it. But we also want to be respectful of the people that did take their time out, and we know that they put enough time in, they didn't rush something in, that they at least put a little time and thought and energy into a solution. The letter of interest thing is not just about the information we get right off the cuff, because, and you'll see that from I think the Main Street's a better example of that. We got 4 interested parties. A couple of them had some details in it. A couple of them ultimately were, business cards. It just said, here's what we've done. But that's okay. At this point, that's okay. They might have suggested a certain style or certain type of development that they would do. But it takes a lot of bandwidth and time and investment to really understand what can go there and to design something. I mean, those are significant investments. So, we like the idea of having 4. We had 4 come in. They all at least seem viable. Let's take it to the next step. And now we want to see financials. Now we want to make sure that you've got the ability to fund a project like this. We can continue to take those steps, and it allows us. And someone might say, hey, I'm working on 10 other projects around the country. This one is my 11th most important, and then drop out. That's okay. But we'll have to have the same disposition period for Pensacola Sports. That's a requirement. But what we want is we want to see vertical construction. And my philosophy right now, whether it be Maritime Park, whether it be Main Street, is we'll work with you. We'll give you the time that you need, but we want to see action. And if we aren't going to see action, that's okay. Let's start over. But we've had a lot of projects threatened for a long time, and it's time to see some vertical construction. And that's no slight of the people that are bidding on it. I think everybody that we're working with is well intended and they want to see the same thing. But sometimes it takes a little urgency on our side of the contract, a little urgency from me that says, the best way we can serve the city is to have taxable value in these buildings that then let us fund our police, our fire, our infrastructure, our roads, all those things. We all want that. So that's what you're going to start to see a philosophical shift towards, is when we start having these agreements, is we're going to want to see, we want to be reasonable. It takes time to finance. It takes time to build. I mean, we're not trying to be unreasonable, but we want to start seeing results.
On the Pensacola Sports property, that one's, I guess, a little bit tougher as far as finding the highest and best use. What is your idea of the highest and best use for that property? Yeah,
look, I think at that parcel, with it only being half an acre, there are some challenges, and that's yet Exhibit C of why I like this process is I wanted folks that do this for a living to think outside the box of what do you do with half an acre in the heart of downtown as it pertains to parking. For example, one mentioned putting a 130 space or 140 space garage, a small garage there. Others have said they're working with the neighbor next door, about maybe a potential partnership. In fact, one of them is the neighbor next door that's putting in, and says, hey, I got a parking garage next door. They might they might be able to build something that has higher taxable value or more units or more office space, whatever the case may be, because they have that asset next door. So, so everybody's really got a different perspective on it. I really think my key is taxable value to the CRA and some type of activation, first floor activation. And why that's important to me is that we symbolize, and I think I may have told you this story before, I think Mayor Robinson, when I was working for Quint and Scape was coming in and doing the Bruce Beach, the waterfront activation study, I was helping administer that because Quint had funded that privately. And Mayor Robinson, myself, and James Lima, who's also worked on other projects, Baptist, and is working with us, we were walking that street, and and we talked about, and he mentioned about when it comes to placemaking, that in a lot of ways we signify that the downtown walk ends right when you get to that parking garage. And the reason is you got a parking garage on one side, then you got one on another. Then you got the Pensacola Sports Building, that's a 9 to 5 private office with a front yard. And then you've got the Realtors Building, and then you've got County and City Hall. When you think about those walkable cities that you go to, you think about that the walk continues. You can be in Manhattan and walk for miles and not notice, or New Orleans and walk for miles and not notice in some cases. I think when you go eastbound on Main Street, we kind of tell you the walk's over, which is unfortunate. We've got a ballpark down here. We've got more and more Maritime Park, hopefully will be developed in the coming years. So that's why it may just be half an acre, but I think that piece is really important, and it's why we were kind of assisting in getting that into the inventory faster. Was we feel like that's an opportunity to bridge some vibrancy, whether that be retail, whether that be whatever is proposed. But I want that first floor activation down there that continues that walkability factor that we would have in the city, that I think is not only helpful for that parcel and helpful for downtown, it's helpful for growth as we move west. I think Bruce Beach, will be it's going to be a beautiful park that people are going to want to be at. I want to try to bridge that walk and continue that it isn't just Palafox. You can go on Jefferson now. You can go on Main Street going east and west. I think those are those types of amenities that people want to see.
I don't know if it's too early to ask about specifics, but I forget the name of the company, but the owners of Harborview, they said their proposal, they would want Bayland Street there to be pedestrian only. What do you think of that?
Well, yeah, it probably is too early to say. At what facet is it? A certain number of feet? Is it the whole thing? Remember, we've been inching towards some progress on design for the public piece of the slip back there. Understand there's public access. Right. You recall there was going to be a kayak launch. I think in the previous administration, a lot of that had come up. I'm a supporter of that, of getting that back open as an amenity to the public. You got a cul-de-sac down there. If you're going to have people do that, they're going to have somewhere to park. So way too early to say. A lot of it would depend on what they're proposing, and of course you saw they weren't necessarily proposing a specific thing. So I'm going to always start at no, probably, when it comes to shutting down a street until we really see the need for it. And the biggest reason is I am a believer in the hashtag project, and I think the Cedar Street aspect of hashtag, which gets forgotten a lot, which is basically supposed to be a pedestrian bike first street as it's designed. Not having Bayland would make that difficult, because that kind of is the out, when you come from the port all the way over there, that's kind of how you get out. Now the hashtag project does have you go under those crepe myrtles along Port Royal. A path would be built there, but just from a logistics standpoint of that parking garage, of getting people in and out of that parking garage on a now walkable street, that might be kind of difficult. So I'll always entertain any creative idea, but we're going to probably default at a no for shutting down roads that we may need to eliminate congestion and things like that until we see exactly what's being proposed.
Mayor, I got one last thing here. The big news in America's Cup Sailing was the delivery of Boat 83 to Barcelona this weekend. Are we tracking? I'm sure you're confident. When is the move? October, November, that they're returning?
So the final, the America's Cup final is runs from October 9th to 21st. What I can say on our project is we're moving as quick as we can, and so Erica and our team is working hard on it. We've got lots of engineers. We're kind of trying to finalize those details. It looked like, we talked about repurposing the building, then we've talked about a new one. We may be going back to repurposing. So, but we got a great team on board, and they're working as fast as they can. What we've always talked about from the beginning was they would finish the America's Cup. Obviously, they're not going to be sailing the next day after the America's Cup is over. They're going to probably take a little break. So, they want to get into some manufacturing, and that's great. But we have weekly standing calls with the team in Barcelona. So they are very much in tune. Every Thursday we chat with them. So they're in tune of exactly where the project is, all of that. So hard to say a date right now, but we're going to be as close to the end of the year or maybe January of next year as we can. And that could be modified. It could be that the building and the envelope is good, and the offices aren't done yet, or there's lots of different ways to move in. And I think their biggest concern is going to be just getting their stuff back here. There's lots and lots of shipping containers of stuff that they have, and we've already been able to accommodate that, whether that be in the building or that be somewhere on port temporarily until we move it in. So
well, they flew boat 83 out of Portsmouth on the Antonov.
Yes.
Heavy lift plane.
Yep.
Would it be likely they would break it down, or would they?
I don't know how they're going to get that. I was fortunate enough to get invited. I got to see the boat. I was in Rhode Island. I was there for 16 hours, so I went up and back and got to look at it.
When was this?
I don't know. I don't know the exact date. So it was a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
So yeah, left here 6 a.m. Thursday. Came home 6 a.m. Friday. But I think they're gonna actually unveil the boat publicly May 10th. So we were able to see it, and they just said don't take any photos. So I don't have anything to share with you. But it was a really cool experience, and the principal of the team, Doug DeVos, was very gracious. New York Yacht Club membership was very gracious. That is the partnership. This is a race amongst yacht clubs, and so the New York Yacht Club is the American team, and they were very gracious and welcoming. And this is not only going to be a partnership. This is going to be a partnership with American Magic in the city, but it's also a partnership with New York Yacht Club in the city. It's they are the flag that this team flies, and so we want them to be excited about this too, and we want them to be because this is going to be the training grounds for their team year round. And sometimes with that might be some anxiety of wait, why not here? Why not do it there? But they've been very gracious about that, and we've certainly extended our offer to anytime that the folks up there, the leadership up there, want to come on port and see what the kind of operation that we have. We welcome them to do so.
Pretty big payroll they got up there in Portsmouth.
Yeah,
that's a big jobs deal.
Significant. I mean, they had the boat in a old facility in Portsmouth. There, they've been building boats a long time. This is certainly they'd be moving into a little larger building. I'm sure they'll like that, but. Dozens of guys that have been working on that, in secret for, and it's amazing what the technology, the studying of every single millimeter of how that boat is going to, sail is amazing. And so really, really excited to see what they do, and I guess the world will get to see that boat in May. But I'm not in terms of them how they bring it back, when they bring it back. I'm not exactly sure, but I assume that boat would be here. So. Anything else? All right. Thank you, guys.